Hello, everybody, and D4 Sean. I want to go run through some comments that D4 Sean has made and illustrate what I think about the relevant issues. Now, I think I misunderestimate D4 Sean from time to time and think he's given some sort of standard knee-jerk reaction, and he shows a little more insight than that. And I have to be careful. In this case, I think he's mistaken, but it's in a way that really illustrates my point. So another way of putting that is maybe he's not mistaken, but still it illustrates what I think of these matters to clarify. So the issue is that D4 Sean has argued that we can't disprove dualism, just in the same way that we can't ever prove we're not in a matrix. And he sees a link, and I see two different things. I'm not a dualist, and I think there are reasons, not necessarily that prove dualism there couldn't be some form of dualism, but really show that our concepts of dualism are self-contradictory, so they're not really candidates. So whatever we mean by dualism would have to be something else, so there is no dualism by the definition of dualism that we have. So for example, if there is a mind-body dualism, which I'll call a mind-brain dualism, this implies, first of all, that the mind is not physical. Why? Because if there's a dualism and these things are separate, if the mind was physical, then wherever that physical nature resides, even if it's outside of the body, this means that it would extend what we think of as the mind to outside the body. And if it's physical, then it's just a physical part of the mind. There's no dualism, it's physical. Okay? So you have to be saying it's not physical. So that means that it's not interacting with the body, because if it did interact with the body, it would be considered physical. Because you have to think, what does physical mean? I mean, you're physical, and things that interact with you are physical. Now forget what you think physical means, like the periodic tables and stuff like that. No, it comes from the fact that you're physical. And whatever you are, that is physical. So for example, at one point we thought that physical meant things were bits of matter, and they were, like the elements in the periodic table. Subsequent to that, we found out, oh shoot, all this stuff is energy. It didn't mean that there was no physical universe, finding out that it's all made of energy. It meant that the physical universe was made of energy. It's sort of a surreal transformation in how we thought of matter, that it was all really made of energy. And if we were to find we were in a matrix, it'd be the same kind of thing. We'd find out that physical world was made of computer memory, or stuff that was essentially like computer memory and computer instructions. And that would be what was physical. Okay, this is the stress that comes on language. When a term is shown to be useless, we have to figure out how we're going to use the term. Do we say nothing is physical? See, we could have two ways. There's still no dualism, no matter what, because either we say nothing is physical, right? So there's no dualism because nothing's physical, or we say that what is physical is drawn from what can interact with me. And this is more the way we should go, and we would find that in the case of there being a matrix, sure, that we had an even more surreal transformation, that what is physical is just naming stuff that can interact with us. Okay, we're physical, anything that interacts with us is physical, and anything we have a perception of is physical, and then we just try to see if it's tangible or not, or a figment of our imagination. But there has a physical reality, because figments of our imagination have a physical reality in the brain. So that's a rejection of dualism. Now he says, but wait a second, what if, since we can't prove that we're not in a matrix, that would prove that we're not physical? Well, as I said, no, the definition of physical would change. Okay. Furthermore, if it really was like the matrix, well, there's still a physical world there, right? We're just deluded about what our senses mean. We think that some object in front of us is physical, and really that's generated by the matrix. But it's still generated into a physical brain using neurochemical stimulation from the computer interface into the brain. And all of that remains physical, all right? So there's still a physical world. But assume that it went all the way down, that world itself is also in a matrix, and that goes all the way down, so to speak. That in the end, there either is no end, or at the end it's a computer, the universe is like a computer simulation more than it is like the periodic table of elements. Well, why would that really matter? Okay, so that means that what's physical is more like computer logic and computer memory. And why would that be a problem? Okay, if people are simulations of computer technology, how is that fundamentally different from them being the result of some other kind of machine, namely carbon and the periodic tables? How would that change? Obviously we'd learn something very deep about physics, but the nature of it being physical would not change. Okay, so that's the point, is that first of all, you're never going to get a dualism out of this lack of knowing if you're in a dream, because all that can do is make everything physical, as in the table of elements, or everything you know, physical in the sense of, oh, it turns out the physical world is made of stuff that's a lot more like imagination than it is what we think of as reality. Now, of course, I don't believe that, because we look around and we see the differences between our dreams and a reality, and our computer simulations and our reality, and we have this issue of infinite regression, that if it is a matrix, then at some point there's supposed to be a physical world that the computer that this is running on exists in. So anyway, that's how that goes out, and why there's no dualism out of that, and also why we have to change our definition. Because, see, if we say, oh, nothing is physical, everything's imaginary, then what's the word for, you know, a physical object? You know, a pool table. I'm playing pool on a pool table. It's a physical thing. If you want to say it's an imagination, fine. It's still, you know, if it falls over on my foot, it still crushes my foot. Oh, my foot's imaginary too. Well, okay, it's all imaginary. It still generates pain. I still care about those things and how they interact. I need a word for them. There is no other word besides physical. So what we have to do is not say, oh, the physical things don't exist. We have to realize, okay, our understanding of what it means for something to be physical was wrong, and then we update that. So that's what I suggest.